I'm resident of Collinwood, Joel Saints for YouTube, joined by my buddy Butch Rosenbalm. We're here to discuss Cahill U.S. Marshall, starring John Wayne. I forgot to grab my DVD, but it's in the living room. Here, I gotta tell you, Butch, I got this movie for $3 at Dollar General, and I'm glad I did. What a great pickup! Um, George Kennedy steals this movie as the heel. When did you first see this movie?
It was later, so sometime in the knots, maybe '05, '06 in that area. I'd gotten into the John Waynes and I started picking them up, and this one either came out or I got a good deal on it. And I mean, I'm sure I've seen bits and pieces over the years on TV, but sit down and actually watch it. Yeah, I agree. George Kennedy makes this film. Some points we'll get into later. John Wayne does not make this film. I would actually this movie to me is a bit of a disappointment. Yeah. You can just and I don't want to get into all my points. Quick recap for everybody. John Wayne plays J.D. Cahill U.S. Marshall. He's always away from home. His kids get involved with some bank robbers, and then he tries to fix things. There's you a very quick synopsis of this.
I feel that, like, if it weren't for the title of this movie, I sort of wish they would have gone the cowboy route in the movie The Cowboys, where the kids avenge the murder. I sort of wish John Wayne's character would have got killed during this movie. And it's the kids who put on, one of the kids who put on maybe there's just one kid, and he puts on the badge and goes after him. I think that would have made this a better movie. Here's some good, before I get to the rest of the bad points, here's some good points. The scenery, the snow looks good. I enjoy the town scenery we get. And simply, the rain in this movie is just, it looks something like a horror movie, which is cool. Westerns, though they are Westerns, they have elements of horror in them. What I mean by that, for those who are going to watch this, I'm not talking about slashing or getting your throat slit. I'm just talking about the element of it, where you'll see there'll be this night scene and you won't hear a sound, but somebody is watching somebody else. You'll see that in a Western. Or you'll just see rain, like when rain happens in a Western. Usually when it's raining in a Western, something is about to happen. In most Westerns, I'll say, not in all. But in this, there's a bank robbery. I'm not trying to jump around, by the people who are already in jail. Which is fun, which I love. George Kennedy in this movie is both funny and psychotic at the same time. What did you? I know you have a lot more points than I do. So, what did you think about George Kennedy in this?
He like I said, he made the film. He is psychotic. He's funny, and he's smart. He comes across. I don't know if it's the guy that had lived at Cahill's house and got the older son to join up with him. If Kennedy was behind that or what, but he picks up on the older son. Daniel has some daddy issues, and he plays on that. And when stop and think about it. You and I are in jail for drunken and disorderly. We're somehow able to sneak out, rob a bank, and get back into jail. Who the hell is going to look for us? Nobody, because we were in jail. It's a great alibi.
I like how George Kennedy throws the keys back,
and misses.
Yeah, and he misses, which makes sense. Like, because there are movies where you'll just see stuff fall, like on a set or something, and they'll just keep filming. Like, you could just make the case, well, the keys just fell off the hook. It's no big deal. And they all sneak out, and the one kid, one of the old, I forget if it's the oldest or youngest, I want to say it's the youngest, says, no killing. Y'all promise no killing. And they do end up killing somebody in the proceeding of the bank robbery. I really enjoy how they set the fire, too. Really well done. You have a lot of cool The effects in this movie, though they're not a lot, they're really fun. The fire, you have the rain, you have the I don't want to say blood in this movie because it's not like there's a ton of it. Like it's very like for a movie that's made in the like in the early 70s. And I know John Wayne wasn't a fan of blood, but it's sort of shocking you don't get blood a lot of blood in this movie. You get very little actually.
But when you get it, man, it's there, and it's that day glow red stuff. I mean, it's not, speaking of someone who was really is interested in special effects, it's not just K-roll food syrup and red food coloring with maybe a little water mixed in. I mean, this stuff is. I'm pretty sure this is a Technicolor film, and that blood shows up so good. I mean, it really draws your attention to it.
But I needed to tell these people, listen, I want some Wild Bunch blood here. That's what I.
Not a squib, but the color of the blood.
right. And you're right. John Wayne, the opening of this movie is John Wayne's best sequence, which is really cool. But that's, I mean, don't get me wrong, he has good dialogue. It's a typical John Wayne film if you're looking for that. And that's why I chose this, because this is sort of one of those Westerns he made. You've talked about this, and I give you a lot of credit, where they didn't want John Wayne to be funny. They just wanted him to play these roles. And this just feels like a role he took to take and do. I don't think he phoned it in, mind you, but I do feel that I wish he would have did a bit, like asked for a rewrite on some of his dialogue, because I just feel like I get the message of the film. Like, here's this Marshall who doesn't need to be a Marshall. He needs to be a dad. And because of the law of the land, or the lack of the law, he has to go out and sort of enforce a law and capture the criminals and bring them to justice. And that leaves his two sons at home, and they're one's a teenager, one's getting bigger and bigger, and they sort of turn to crime. And you're right, did George Kennedy recruit them? That's something I like, that they don't necessarily answer, but it's sort of left up to interpretation. Did or didn't he? Or did they just make the choice? That's a really great move by the director. And I'll give him a lot of credit for it. Great job doing that with those two characters, because throughout the film, what that does for the two kids is this movie is more about the kids than so much Cahill U.S. Marshall. Don't get me wrong, John Wayne's character is in this movie, but this movie is more through the eyes of the two younger stars, or co-stars, I should say. They're not the stars. They maybe should have been put on top billing. But, if you want a Western made, you put John Wayne to top, or Clint Eastwood. So the two kids, one of them gets sick because of the rain, all the rain, where George Kennedy corners him. Hey, we looked for the gold, because he puts the gold somewhere and then he moves it. And George Kennedy, hey, we looked for it. You must have moved it. And he's so scared. Then he gets sick. I love how George Kennedy's character is so concerned. Like, oh, you'll be all right. Like, is this fun? Is Jimmy Stewart secretly feeding him his lines or what? But George Kennedy and Jimmy Stewart were friends too. But I just enjoy I like how George Kennedy comes in the window like a goddamn phantom and scares the shit out of the kids. I'm sorry, I'm rambling. Go ahead, sir.
You're good. Now, according to my internet research that anybody else could do, in other words, hit Wikipedia, hit IMDb, and hit TV and movie tropes. According to what I read, about halfway through this film, John Wayne found out that John Ford was dying of cancer. And in his own words later, John Wayne admits he gave up about halfway through this film. Mm-hmm. And you can tell it. There's scenes where he's on top of it, like that first scene that you're talking about in the snow. I mean, that is a good scene. Mm-hmm. And then later, there's times you can tell he's just kind of, I don't want to say he's phoning it in, but he doesn't have the same oomph, if you will, there. And something else I read also talked about, even John Wayne said this movie needed a rewrite, and I totally agree. It's got a bit of a problem with pacing, and the dialogue isn't real fresh. It's not bad. Don't misunderstand me. It's just it could use a polish.
I feel with this movie too. I've talked about horror elements. I feel like there were, because the two kids go into a mine, like, well, one of them does, and the other one's waiting. I feel like there was supposed to be more to that mine shaft, and then there wasn't. Like, he goes in and he hollers for George Kennedy's character, and you don't hear nothing, but because nobody's there. And I'm thinking, man, it just feels like there's supposed to be more tensity here in this scene, and maybe they're supposed to go inside. No, they don't. They don't like walk down into the mine shaft. But I do feel like it feels like there's things missing from this movie. And that's sort of one of the things I wanted to talk about too with this movie, with that scene. And also, I feel like Cahill U.S. Marshall, like, I feel maybe I always feel when I watch this movie, like, I feel his character is supposed to die, but he doesn't.
Yeah, I can see that. I don't know. Let's see, what had the Cowboys come out by now? It's right around the same time. I can't remember. And it joined the legendary films that John Wayne dies at the end of, between at the time the Cowboys and the Alamo. I don't know. I feel like I get that feeling, but I also think he wasn't supposed to, because they wanted to have the family get the happy family reunion at the end. The thing, for anybody who hasn't seen it, John Wayne captures people at the beginning. They set the bad guys set the fire. They rob the bank. They go back to jail. John Wayne comes in. He finds out the sheriff's been killed. Finds out his oldest son is in jail. Finds out that the younger son's sick. I'm trying to hurry through it, and he deputizes the older son to go after whoever robbed the bank. Well, he's one of them, and he's like, they come across these guys who had robbed somebody else. He's like, Pa, I don't think I did them. I still hate to hear a grown man call his father Pa. That's a whole other story. Pa, I don't think they did it. What's that? And he wouldn't say anything. And, kind of typical teenage stuff. You should say something, but maybe you just haven't worked out who you are yet. Then the movie makes a great change as time goes on, and we find out John Wayne knows that they were part of it. Him and his Indian tracker friend are following them. And I think that's a really smart move, because if John Wayne plays dumb the whole film, it doesn't make him look good.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. That's a great point you just made. There's a scene where you see the kids, and by this point, you're sort of asking, like, does John Wayne's character really not know, like, that his kids are in trouble? Like, he's sort of been talking to them, and he's sort of like looking at them like, you're not telling me something. There's a scene where John Wayne's Cahill U.S. Marshall is looking at his sons, and he can tell they're hiding something. And they obviously knew about the bank they heard about the bank robbery. So, and I think even though you don't see it during the course of like before that scene you just described, I like that they play this close to the vest and they have him figure it out. And where do you think the money is? They're going for the money. And I love that, because it gives Cahill U.S. Marshall the credibility that he's earned. And I think this is where the movie redeems itself toward the end, where they're going after the money, and they're planning for, basically there's going to be a confrontation. And George Kennedy's character, I'll get into that. That's a whole other matter. But there's a moment when they get to the cemetery, and you can tell they're scared shitless. And I love it. There's a lot of great horror atmosphere to this Western, which is another reason I chose it, because though its story did need work, it has really good atmosphere and good moments of atmosphere. tension, the mine shaft, the cemetery, the snow, the really, really good moments of just, and I give credit to the cinematographer and more the director, but I also give credit to the two young men who were in this movie, who were in the cemetery, and they hear the owl.
That special effect with the owl's got to be one of the worst ever. I mean, it looks like, as much as I love Hammer, they could not do a decent vampire bat in any of the Dracula films, and this owl is right there with it. I was thinking about it when I was watching this, and like, man, these kids are bad. And the more I watch them, like, no, the kids are not bad, not bad actors. They have some dumb lines, and I feel like these kids were trying as hard as they could with what they had. Unfortunately, what they had wasn't a whole lot. In the cemetery scene where John Wayne and his tracker are chasing after him, and John Wayne looks at Neville Brand and goes, "Be like taking candy from a baby." Well, they dig the money up. His two kids do, and he says, "All right, let's get them." They start going, "Woo!" and it comes in like they're really slow, and the kids go, "Ah!" They end up shooting. They shoot John. They shoot John Wayne. John Wayne. He falls off his horse, and I swear they hit the tracker, Neville Brand, and he falls off his horse and he breaks his leg. And after the kids take off, John Wayne comes up there and he goes, "Yeah, you want to hear something funny?" He goes, "Yeah, like taking candy from a baby." And it's like, well, and he's like, "You want to hear something really funny? What? My leg's broke."
Actually, you're right. You're right. They do actually. This is a goof up in the movie. They do make contact, I believe, in his upper shoulder, which this is why he's supposed to fall off the horse. But I think they had for either editing or they just forgot that he gets hit. I want to say this is an editing decision because I can't believe they forgot it. You know what I mean? I think it's just an editing decision that they choose to let's not worry about him because spoiler alert, they're going to kill the character off in the movie, and it's not to be clear, it's not the kids who kill him, but he's laying on the ground. Hey, guess what? My leg's broke. It's like, yeah, like taking candy from a baby. I'm thinking, yeah, every time I usually hear that line in a movie, usually something does go wrong. And it goes really wrong for our friend Cahill U.S. Marshall and his tracker. Like the kids are actually better shots than what you give them credit for.
Yeah. They after all that happens, they follow him, and then they go to give the bad guys their share, the George Kennedy and his group, and the older son, splits it in 5 ways because there's 5 of them. Of course, that pisses them off because I'm pretty sure that George Kennedy was just going to kill them and take it all. Oh, yeah. I mean, he didn't care. That's not his kids, and he's just like so friend now. He goes, "Well, that ain't the way we do it, but all right, we'll just call it even, and I'll offer you my hand in friendship, and I sure hope you won't insult me by not taking." And every time he starts pulling, I'm like, please don't be a dumb idiot. And thankfully, the kid is not. He just looks at him and he's like, "Nope, go on." And the kids for teenage kids, they play it pretty good. And then they go to leave, and the little one says to the big one, he's like, "Are they going to try and kill us?" He's like, "Yeah, they probably are." And they're like riding through, and there's one part where they're riding pretty good, and then they get to the clearing. What do? They slow down so that John Wayne can push a tree in front of them. And he's like, and he tells them, basically, "Yeah, I know what's going on. Go on back home." "But Pa, I go on back home." What he's doing is he's using the kids to draw the bad guys out, because otherwise he can't track them because his tracker's over here. Yeah.
I really like the fact too that when they're getting away, they're so they're looking around like this as they're riding. They're so paranoid that George Kennedy's character is just gonna pop out like he's Michael Myers. And you can tell that their mind is on that scene where he comes through the window. And I love that. The two kids did a good job there selling that they were still thinking about that moment. And I give credit again. You're right. George Kennedy not only carries this movie, he steals it. And I love the fact where he's like, "See, I knew you were going to kill." And George Kennedy says something like about giving the man his his illusions or something. I forget what he said.
Allow a man his illusions.
Yeah, just I started howling when I heard that again because it's still funny. I'm thinking George Kennedy is a fun heel in this movie, and he just makes the movie watchable, even though yes, this movie did need a rewrite, and this movie needed other things. It is a fun watch. Let me ask you, what's your favorite scene?
Well, the opening scene's pretty good, but truthfully, my favorite scene is after they've gone up into the mountains and they got the other gang and are bringing them in, and they run into the townsfolk that have come to. They're going to take the wrong bad guys that they think killed the sheriff and hang them, and they come to this little creek, and this guy's like, I think that's actually Jackie Coogan. I think it's the role he plays. He's like, "We'll take it from here, JD." And he's like, "Oh, you will you?" And I mean, they're all like, I mean, there's like 20 guys. And John Wayne kind of looks towards Neville Brandon's like, "How far away you think they are?" And he's like, "Man, about 10, 12 feet. Make a good pattern with this buckshot." And it's, for me, this is what a U.S. Marshal in the Old West would do. He's not the least bit intimidated.
No.
And he's like, "You know what? I'm cold. I'm tired. I'm hungry. I'm pissed off. I'm willing to die to keep them. Are you willing to die to try and take them?" And Jackie kind of turns, and then John Wayne just goes, "Oh hell, get out of my way," and just goes right through the middle of them. Yeah. That is, for any and all flaws with this film, to me, that is John Wayne right there. Specifically, John Wayne playing a marshal or a sheriff, not intimidated. You can't intimidate him, but he man, when you get in his way, he will move you.
I love that scene. I was watching Have Gun Will Travel, and there was a character in one of the episodes who sounded like John Wayne. My wife's like, "Are you watching a John Wayne movie?" I'm like, "No, I'm watching Have Gun Will Travel." But though John Wayne's not in this episode, Charles Bronson is. So
yeah, he can get away with the same kind of stuff.
Yeah, Richard Boone, great actor.
Richard Boone.
Yep. My favorite scene, I love the scene where the kid is sick in the bed and his brother's trying to guard him, and George Kennedy just swoops in the window like he's the goddamn shadow. Really, really creepy and really good. And I like how he's all concerned about the kid being sick. Oh, you get, it's bullshit.
Yeah, he's not concerned about the kid. He just wants the kid to live to make sure he gets the money. But he plays it so well. Oh, well, then you just stay right here and you get well, without saying, "So I can get my money." But you hear it without him even saying it. But to me, also, that's one of the reasons we say he's a smart villain, because it's like, you can't scare the dead.
Yeah.
So, let the kid get better, and then you can get your stuff. Also, hold on. There is one other scene I really like. After they catch George Kennedy and they think they've killed them all, and it's like, "Well, go get the wagon." And he's like, "Hold on a minute." And he pulls out his 6-gun and he starts shooting at George Kennedy's hat. But the second shot, they shoot the camera where George Kennedy's laying on the ground and his eyes are open and he's playing dead. And he shoots the hat, and then finally on the third shot, George Kennedy jumps up and goes, "You'd shoot a dead man, wouldn't you?" He's like, "Not hardly, but you ain't dead," or something to that extent. That's That's somebody that knows what they're doing and doing it.
I love the fact that George Kennedy gets to play dead in this movie because it's just funny. He's just laying there like when he opened his eye. The camera work is really good in this movie, despite the story. And when he gets John Wayne and George Kennedy do not miss a beat when they're on screen together, which is great. Which is great.
More scenes together, though.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if they were going for less is more, but because again, with this movie, the two kids are sort of they're more a bigger part of the story than
they're the main characters.
Yeah, the movie's called Cahill U.S. Marshall, and yes, John Wayne does star in this movie, and his character's in it. But the main story, is more through the kids, and around George, around George Kennedy's character. Yes, Cahill U.S. Marshall is sort of in the background without you actually seeing him a ton of times. But there are moments he comes on screen, and I do think there needed to be more, because he does say a lot. He does say something about George Kennedy's character in town. He knows how to make new friends quickly. I agree with you. There needed to be some more interaction between Kennedy and Wayne. That's my one biggest gripe about this movie. I could probably have more. Well, other than that, and I do wish we'd have got more of the mine shaft inside the mine shaft. I think that'd have been a great horror moment, like if Kennedy's people were in there trying to scare the kids or trying to get at them. But other than that, obviously do enjoy this movie. We both owned it. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just thinking, let's see. There's a point where somewhere in my research where John Wayne's like, the film's just missing something, that we've said. And this was the last time he worked with director Andrew McLaughlin. And apparently, I forget where I read it. Apparently, John Wayne held Andrew McLaughlin responsible for this film not doing well. And that's why he never worked with him again. It's like, I know you're John Wayne, and I know for roughly 20 years you were the most popular actor in the whole world, and your films made the most money, but that doesn't. I just think that's kind of rude. Could McLaughlin have done more? Yeah. Probably was not allowed the time, probably not allowed the money. And that may be why John Wayne is. This isn't the typical John Wayne film, and he's in it, let's say 20% less than usual, because it's not typical. And I wonder if maybe that was because of his price, his cost.
This movie is made I looked up the Cowboys. It's made in 1972. This movie's made in 1973.
Okay.
So this movie's after the Cowboys, and in the movies in the 70s, pretty much a lot of the movies you saw was less is more. I mean, unless it's the Outlaw Josie Wells, but most of the time, most movies you saw in the 70s, like Black Christmas, Halloween, movies that they're trying to not tell you too much, or trying to let the audience interpret. And I think that's the thing with this movie too. The director is leaving a lot to interpretation, which isn't a bad thing. But there are things that you could have done to sort of, again, we've talked about George Kennedy and John Wayne having more scenes together. That would have made the movie a lot better. Also, again, the movie redeems itself by the end, but there's middle parts where you're hearing a lot from the kids and you're not hearing enough from the aspect of Cahill U.S. Marshall, John Wayne's character. You're getting bits and pieces. You're getting, okay, he's never around. Okay, he knows there was a robbery. He knows that the sheriff died. So, does he realize that his kids were a part of it? It's not said till later in the movie. I don't think those are necessarily bad decisions, but there are decisions that are going to affect your movie one way or the other. And I think not having... There needed to be a scene where Cahill U.S. Marshall goes to George Kennedy and goes, You don't think I've got my eyes on you? I do. I wouldn't, something to that effect. But, and I'm not trying to complain about this movie. There are things, again, I've pointed out what I've liked about it, the horror elements, and the atmosphere is really good. And George Kennedy's a lot of fun. And I do think the kids were trying, again, I think their dialogue isn't the greatest. And I don't think it's necessarily their fault. It just may have been the way it was written.
Yeah.
But you're putting young actors in a more mature, responsible. Again, a year earlier, we had the Cowboys. That movie worked for that reason, where there were kids who sort of, under the tutelage of a John Wayne character, learned the rough ways of life and cattlemen and all that. With this movie, you have the opposite message of, here's a father who's never around, and so his kids are sort of adolescent, they get into trouble. You're not sure whether George Kennedy's character recruits them. That's more left up to the audience. Which I'll ask you now, do you feel Kennedy's character recruited him? Yay, nay?
I think Stryker, or whatever his name is,
Yeah.
he actually was the one that he found out that Daniel had a problem with his daddy, and he told George Kennedy, and George Kennedy's like, the Marshall, okay, yeah. I mean, he's an opportunist. He saw an opening, so kind of, I guess, would be the way to answer that question. I think he saw an opportunity and he took it.
This reminds me of a Batman game I was playing, where the Penguins talk and do, it's like, oh, everything will be okay, and if Batman comes near my guns, I'll shoot your ass. That's George Kennedy's character in a nutshell. Oh, everything will be okay, but no, I'm going to shoot you if this happens. I love the fact that, to answer the question I asked you, I do think that I'm with you. I think Stryker more recruited him. So George Kennedy, I don't think George Kennedy's character recruits them directly. It's more of an indirect thing. And they sort of fall under his silverish tongue. I think where they're coming to the realization of how dangerous he is, there's moments in that jail cell where they realize, okay, this guy is dangerous. We're not killers. The moment where this movie deserves a lot of credit in the beginning is in those jail sequences before the robbery takes place, because the kids are they're both under the assertion, okay, we're not killers, but George Kennedy's character, he's a cold-blooded killer. So we can't just let him out and commit this robbery. We got to set some rules and regulations and guidelines. And he goes, I give you my word. I'm thinking, bullshit.
Yeah. Okay, whatever you want to hear to get you to come along. And then when it happens, he just kind of looks at him, and the other guy grabs the kid and holds him and covers his mouth. And there's two things about this film I really don't like. And the first one comes from my wife, and I totally agree with her. That song, I believe it's by Charlie Pride.
Yeah.
It is so out of place. It's like some 70s AM gold country rock kind of, and it's just like, where the hell is this coming from? I mean, the lyrics fit the song, fit the movie. That's not what I'm talking about, but it's just kind of like, what?
This isn't Bon Jovi and Young Guns. This isn't where it fits. But here's the thing of that though. Bon Jovi wrote a lot of that soundtrack for the Young Guns too.
If they put this at the beginning during the credits, I think it would have been much better. But putting it in the middle of the movie, it kind of falls apart.
They needed somebody who knew how to score a Western. Now, I don't think they had that with this movie. I agree with Jill. But we need to get her on a guest spot.
Good luck. Good luck.
Listen, I could talk anyone into anything. At least that's what I'm going to tell you. No. But here's the thing. Like, if you could get Ennio Morricone, if you could get somebody who could actually wrote some, music dialogue for this movie, it'd have been great. I just think that not all westerns have great scores, or some of them just have weird ones. I'll give you a western I like that, though I like the score by Ennio Morricone. It's weird, and it's called "My Name Is Nobody." It stars Henry Fonda, and it's a good score, but it's weird for the movie in a sense.
It was Elmer Bernstein, so I mean, it's somebody that knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
So it just my second problem is the ending. Because anybody knows enough about westerns, no, bank robbers get hung.
Yes.
You get all the money back. And I don't know. I just always believe when Cahill and his sons pull back into town, they tell the biggest damn lie. Well, these guys had my kids held hostage, and they forced them, but we recovered all the money, and they're all dead, and there's nobody left to tell the truth that my oldest son was involved with the bank robbing.
Can I give you my theory on that? Cahill. Now, I know, to be clear, this is not in the frame of the movie, but you could get the hint from it if you. Cahill U.S. Marshall knew he was going to kill them bank robbers. He was never.
Oh, yeah.
He was never bringing them in. And I'll tell you, the moment that was decided is when they're watching the two kids go on, and they're following them. They're not. Cahill and his partner are not worried about Kennedy's gang because they know what they're going to do, So, but I mean Cahill U.S. Marshall and his partner. Their plan is to kill George Kennedy because they don't need them coming back into town and telling their side of the story. And that's where this movie's a bit dark, because it's like you have a lawman who's literally committing murder in a sense to basically protect his kids.
Yeah, yeah. And if he is going to lie and he is going to kill people, I mean, you think back to Wyatt Earp and the Earp Vendetta ride.
Yes.
If you're going to protect somebody, especially in Old West, probably family is among the best reasons why. So
here's the thing to that too. I mean, look, was Wyatt Earp a saint? No, he had warrants for his arrest up to the day he died. I mean, for the whole sequence. I mean, the one thing that's sort of hinted in those movies that Wyatt Earp wanted to be the sheriff. He wanted to be what Bohan was, because Bohan was the tax collector. He wanted the money. He wanted the money. And so that's something interesting about Wyatt Earp too, that Earp himself is sort of shady-esque in a way, but he's also friends with a notorious outlaw, Doc Holliday.
Okay, Joel, wait a minute now. I'm gonna step on Wyatt Earp's side for a little bit.
Go ahead, sir.
You're in a very dangerous business. You're going people that have no problems killing you and not even looking. And you've got a friend who's one of the best shots in the whole Wild West.
Yes.
Where I'm going to go face off some bad guys, and I got a guy that's a good friend that's a good shot. Hell yeah, come on! I don't care what your problems are. I don't care if you're sleeping with a woman named Big Nose Kate. I don't care if you killed 17 people. Come on! I'd have done the same thing.
A lot of people, and I agree with a lot of who was it? A history teacher said this. He believed that Doc Holliday may have been the fastest gun in the West. And I gotta say, though a lot of his stuff is handled behind closed doors, other than the OK Corral and the Vendetta ride. Though here's the thing about the Vendetta ride, we talked about this. He wasn't there at the end because by the end he was sick. He was in Denver, Colorado. He had tuberculosis. But I do think Holliday may have been the fastest gun in the West. I do think there's something to that
discussion.
I think that's something that if you read between the lines, Holliday was very much feared for a reason, and rightfully so. Probably every person, like when you look at like characters throughout, like people throughout history has shady people in their life. No one had more shady people on in their life than Al Capone, and he was shady. Uh, okay, Cahill U.S. Marshall. Now that I've got off topic enough there, what are your overall thoughts? 1 out of 10. What do you give the movie?
5.
Nice.
5.
Nice.
Like John Wayne said, like we mentioned, the script needed a little more work. It's not bad.
No.
5, not a bad score. It's not a good score. You know, when you like you go have your favorite meal. Let's say it's fried chicken, mashed potatoes, and coleslaw, and maybe they don't have coleslaw, or the coleslaw is bad.
Yeah.
Whatever. Like, well, and not that your whole meal is bad, but it's just like, well, I wanted more, and this is what this film always makes me feel like. I wanted more.
I give this a 5.5. I'm a sucker for the atmosphere in this movie and the horror and the bit of a horror atmosphere we get. I love the rain in this movie. The snow's a lot of fun. I live in the mountains, so I'm used to seeing snow. No, I do not send any Butch's way. I know better. So, 5.5. I think it's a movie that's fun, though, and George Kennedy is just a lot of fun to watch in this movie. If you watch this movie for no other reason, George Kennedy is worth it.
Yeah,
for sure. Small question. Can you do our videos on a Friday night?
Next week or moving forward?
Well, the next couple weeks.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So it's your turn to pick, my friend.
I got one I want to do, but I don't know how easy it is to get. So I'm tell you what, one I would like to do is 7 Men from Now, starring Randolph Scott. But do me a favor. Let's look and make sure you can get it. I don't even know if it's available online, and if you can't, we'll do Big Jake.
From Now, 1956. Hold on. 1 second. I gotta check one other place.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because if it's not on here where I'm about to check them. See, I don't trust most streaming services anymore.
No.
Because like a lot of stuff I've been like trying to check out, it's not there. Like, why? Okay. It is available to rent on Amazon. So there's that.
Not too bad price, is it?
Hold on. No, $4.19.
No, okay.
To rent.
Is that okay?
Yeah. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna beg my wife tomorrow. Julie,
well, if it's a problem, we can just do Big Jake instead.
It should.
I don't want you getting hurt.
It should. Listen, if I come back to next week with bandages, and I'll still have watched the movie, but I'll have the bandages to prove that I watched the movie. That'll be proof that I watched it. It'll be the evidence I need. I think that's the thing. Like if my wife, listen, this missing tooth I got, it's from Julie. No, I'm kidding. But if I'm bandaged up, it's because my wife beat me up. I'll tell you what, the craziest thing I ever had happen was well, I'll end our recording. I'll talk to you. But see you guys next week for Butch's selection. First of all, thank you, Butch. This is a lot of fun, obviously.
Thank you, Joel.
Thank you.